Let me call up to the stage Carolyn Lucas, the Associate Director of the Trisha Brown Company, and Lisa Kraus, who needs no introduction, and Marie-Hélène Rebois. The film is a really heady experience. I feel watching the cyclone sequence as if I were watching, I don't know, either animals or children who had a little too much to drink. And yet that probably, the complexity of it is stunning, the movement. And I think I just have to ask, that's on my mind, what kind of person is a Trisha Brown when you're thinking about a dancer for Trisha Brown Company? What sort of characteristics does this person have to have besides obvious physical skills? It takes more. It's a whole philosophy.
It's a philosophy, and
Is it on? I think it is. Just
on?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I think it's amazing over like 30-something years to watch. I've been watching dancers come into the company for 33 years now, and one of the things that I think that is so extraordinary is that people just do truly have an affinity and a desire to embody her work, and many, many different
and you can see that right away.
Dancers are, I think it starts with just an extraordinary attraction to the work, and then to have just a beautiful affinity for it.
Right. Well, one thing I want to get straight, the premiere at the Paris Opera was in 2013, right? Is that right? And I understand, no? No.
No, it was first staged on them in 2003, and then again in 2004.
With you?
And then they had to get both of the early times with me and also with Diane Madden.
She here?
I think she's probably still here.
Yeah.
Yay!
Oh, there she is.
Also,
So this Glacial Decoy has a long history with the Paris Opera Ballet.
It was the first piece that they took of Trisha's.
Right, right. But now in terms of the filming, how did this evolve with the three of you for the film?
Oh, it was
For the
very
film.
simple. I tried to be nobody see me and my crew. So
No, I mean, how did you all connect to do the film? When was it decided, yes, there would be a film of the reconstruction of Glacial Decoy?
at the beginning it was only a part of a film. But when we saw a material, when I saw a material with the editor, I thought it's a film itself. So I make the film with only this work, and I try to learn the pieces before, and I was with my crew in the rehearsal, and I spoke to Lisa and Caroline to understand what is important in each rehearsal. And but I need to know the piece finished.
And how were the dancers selected? Were they selected by the Paris Opera?
You choose, no?
Yes. Well, the interesting thing is when you're working with them, when you demonstrate, it's clear and impossible to do for them. I mean, it looks to me like it would take, I don't know how long to, but they're very willing and very cooperative and seem to be enjoying themselves. And in the end, were you pretty satisfied with the result?
Well, again, it's interesting because Diane primarily worked on the reconstruction with Stephen Petronio Company, but I also worked on that. And those dancers are coming from a physical place that's much closer to somebody who might end up dancing with Trisha Brown Co. And I feel like, yeah, on the level of executing the movement, I think they are able to fulfill the movement more fully, actually,
Right.
than the ballet dancers. I mean, what the ballet dancers gravitate to that's kind of difficult to work with, it just remains difficult to work with. And so you just try and bring them as far as they can go. And then they also have an incredible elegance and just beauty in how they look on the stage. So that's
That can't
a
be
different kind of
changed.
plus.
Yeah.
That's a very different kind of virtue.
Right, right. Well, I noticed the shoulders seem to be one of the bigger problems. But you're going in different directions, but the shoulders, the looseness is very difficult to accomplish.
Yeah, I still personally think the main thing is weight.
Weight.
Yeah, being willing to allow your parts to move separately and really embracing gravity.
Right. Well, maybe we should take a couple of questions, and then I have some more, but maybe there are people here who...
Did you ever find beginning in 2003 or 4, and now again, just a few years ago, that there were ballet dancers who simply could not adapt? Because I was amazed to see that the ballet dancers, of which I am one, could be so, they just seemed to fall into, I was fascinated and was impressed with what you did to them. But did you ever find any ballet dancers that just couldn't do it? And very politely.
Well, I think it is important to be clear. I'm not sure if it was clear that the cast was chosen by the Paris Opera Ballet. And so I think they also have like a really system of having 2 casts and then even understudies under those casts. And one thing that was really interesting is that 2 of the women in the 2013 cast started in 2003. And we put each one of them in a different cast in 2013. I think that it's pretty clear from the Paris Opera who they want in the lead positions, and I think that's actually I respect that in a certain way, because I think that they know their dancers very well. And so there were definitely people who excelled, and there were some who were struggling through the whole process, I think. But I still think that it was valuable for all of them. And I thought that just being away from it now for 3 years and seeing the film, I actually thought you edited it in a beautiful way to actually see the progression and what they were able to accomplish.
Yes, but it's very important for me because I think cinema can show something words cannot explain. So you see the transformation of bodies, and it's very moving. Yes, that's why I do that.
when you talk about transmission of this incredible technique, and it seems like, since it has to be body to body, how do you overcome the idea that you're getting further and further away from the source? How does that work in terms of, I mean, technique evolves, you know, no matter who it is, I guess it changes a bit. So I'd like to know from both of you what your idea is about transmission.
Well, I noticed I said in the film that I thought that everyone was so lucky to have Lisa's presence, because it's in her nervous system, so to speak.
She's got it in her body.
Yes.
But you've got the overall.
In her bones, she said.
In her bones.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's
that's for sure.
Body
for
memory,
sure.
it's so extraordinary.
But I can't remember if it was the first or second time that we did it in Paris. Steve Paxton came and saw it, and he said, "They all look like you," which was not a compliment. And I think in a way there's a little bit of a danger. You know, passion has a flip side where you think, you know, you kind of own something, or you absolutely know the way it is, or, you know, and in my own case, I think of folk songs and the way there are many different versions of folk songs, and, you know, on one voice it'll sound one way, on another voice another way. And, you know, even when Trisha was working, you saw rehearsal footage from her studio from 1978 and 9, I think, where she was throwing us movement, quote unquote, throwing, meaning she would improvise and we had to catch what we saw on the spot, instant replay. And Nina Lundborg, the Swedish dancer with whom the piece was made, and I had very different versions of what we saw. I think we've tried to go for more, a more agreed upon version, in more, you know, as time has gone on, and it is further away from when the piece was made, there's more stress on figuring out how exactly should each movement be done. And I know that there's rigorous looking at the different iterations of the piece in order to figure that out. And the fact is that the two people who are making those decisions, Carolyn and Diane, have been invested body and soul in this work for many, many decades. So I don't know who could possibly be more trustworthy in terms of that.
I actually saw Diane restage Set and Reset at NYU, and that was absolutely incredible. And the students were doing pieces by student choreographers, and there was a lot of rolling around on the floor, and there was you couldn't really tell the abilities. Suddenly they came out and Set and Reset, and it was extraordinary. It was a fabulous experience. So I think what you're saying is it changes, but as long as there's still a lot of Trisha Brown in it, and that's the most important thing. So, any more questions? Yes.
I wish I knew.
You would think that American Ballet Theater would
Yeah.
you know,
But
take
in
a crack at it.
fact,
Pardon me?
We were together at the premiere in Philadelphia, and the company embraced the work with such passion, and I thought they looked extraordinary.
The Pennsylvania Ballet or another company?
The Pennsylvania Ballet.
Right.
And Lisa can talk about.
So we just don't know the answer, Wendy.
This lady just said she thinks it has a lot to do with the current director. I can actually speak to that because, the piece that happened on Pacific Northwest Ballet was a version of Spanish dance. I don't know how many of you know that, but they're very simple task-based dances, not like what you saw here. And so Pennsylvania Ballet actually was the first United States ballet company to take a full Trisha Brown work, which was the trio that she made on 3 étoiles of Paris Opera called Aux Lausanne au Composite. The way that came about is that there was somebody in love with the work who felt like it should be seen. That person was actually me. I wrote a big grant to the Pew Center for Arts and Heritage. Thank you. And Wendy Perrin, the wonderful dance writer and performer and choreographer, was part of that project as well. We worked with the Barnes Foundation. We worked in all the universities in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia. But there have been other cities that have really embraced Trisha too. Just somehow like LA has done quite a lot. Minneapolis has done quite a lot. But somehow like the bridge to the actual ballet companies has not happened. I went to Pennsylvania Ballet with, I forget how much money, $75,000. I said, you want to do this? We'll help make it happen for you. And that's how that happened.
Maybe they're afraid. Maybe they don't think they can handle it. I don't know. Anyway, it's a shame because it's the most extraordinary. I mean, Trisha Brown, when you see dance now, you see you see the influence that she's had. It's tremendous. And it doesn't seem possible that people aren't excited to do more of her work. So.
Well, I want to say one more thing about that. I think part of why people who feel it's important that it be seen out in the world more and who try to articulate it and write about it do so is that it still feels as if in certain quarters the work is just not fully seen still. Like people, like I think a film like this really helps people understand what it is, what's in it, what's it about, So I don't think everyone has that knowledge.
Marie-Hélène has done a great service because maybe there will be more, because you can see it so clearly. I have never seen anything so clearly demonstrated as the two of you have done in that film. So it could be used. I hope the film will get around, I'm sure, through Icarus. Lots of people will see it. Anyone else besides? Are there any other questions?
Right here.
Yes.
I just want to say that I think the great gift of the film is a chance to watch great teaching. It's like Zen masters teaching. And I think that's also a tribute to the filmmaker who trusted her audience to be able to sit and just look and figure and follow and understand. It's a great piece of filmmaking work, so thank you really for that. Thank you.
Wonderful. How did you arrange the shoot? I mean, how complicated was to film? That must have been a challenge.
Before to answer, I want to thank Lisa and Caroline because it's the most important thing is to have confidence with a character who drive the transmission, and we works very well. We don't talk a lot, but I choose to have only one camera. That was the challenge for me, because one camera it's difficult, and with a mirror and everything. So I have a very good chef operator, cameraman, woman, and it's perhaps you cannot see, but it's rarely a success with one camera. Yes, because you see a link between Lisa, Caroline, and the dancers. And if we have more, 2 or 3, it's not the same at all.
No, it has a wonderful
Yes.
quality, very intimate, and you're right there. It's beautiful to watch. Yeah.
But it's very important because, and the words of Lisa, energy, what makes the dancer. The dancers are like in a. I don't find a word. Sorry. You know, they are in a pool. You know, in a pool, and they swim and they listen. Lisa, who hypnotize them, literally. So it's very interesting, and they are very pleased. It's difficult for these dancers to do that, but always they do that with their heart, and they try to follow, simply follow, and petit à petit they arrive. It's not the same as said Brigitte Lefebvre. It would not be the same as Trisha and Lisa, but they made a long way. In how many times do you have dancers?
3 weeks.
Lisa?
3 weeks for the. How long
How
did you
many
have the
times?
dancers?
Oh no, I think it was more than that. I mean, the very first time was 6. The next time was like 5 or 4.5. This time it was 4.5, 5 weeks, something like that. Oh, you were there last time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You were helped. Your knowledge of French, a surprise. I don't. How did that?
The thing is, I can't move and talk French at the same time. But
But it was helpful.
my experience, and I think Carolyn could second this, not all, they say they understand English, but they don't all the time. So it seems good to meet them in their language some of the time.
Brava.
And I was very lucky to have this piece, Glacial Decoy, because it was the first piece on proscenium of Trisha Brown. And it was the occasion for me to show what she does before. And Caroline and Lisa was agree with this simple disposition with a book and some archive to show how Trisha arrived.
I just want to say that was actually the very first day that we
We're
met
talking
with
about
them.
the early years with the book.
Yeah, that before we started dancing, or, I forget, the beginning of afternoon rehearsal or something like that. We started with just talking and looking. So you happened to be there on the first day, which originally I thought was a horrible idea, but I'm
Yes,
now
you are
glad
not.
you were there.
But did you have some rehearsal before? Yes, I think so.
I think we had 2 periods in the day with a break in between. So you probably came in during the second period, something like that.
What was the problem at the end that you were not something to do with the proscenium? With might as well get into it.
It's so funny to
Dangerous.
see, I was a little flip with Brigitte, I think, that, she said, you will fix that.
We
And
will
I said,
fix it.
yes, madame, like
Yes.
that, like, of course we will. But, and actually it was really hard. And I think, and the thing that was really hard, I'll just show you with my fingers for a second, this phenomenon of total equidistant spacing on the part of the dancers, which you somehow would think people involved in a corps de ballet who are used to that kind of precision would be okay. But the distances are fairly large, and you have to feel them out, and you have to be always in the right place relative to this line on the floor. There are many cues for where you need to locate yourself. But this is one place where I kind of wondered whether some of the dancers, and this is what Carolyn was talking about, that, some of them come to it more fully and easily, and some of them have a harder time. And with this particular batch of dancers, I felt like there were some who maybe just never really understood how totally vital it was that they be perfect.
At Opera Paris, we have never enough time. That's the point to work. And I think Lisa was upset.
Well, there was also another little thing that happened with the stagehands where they have to mark. It's really weird. The stage is raked, so if you're falling forward, it's more dangerous. So there's stuff like that. But then also they angle the wings, and I think we had a thing where they actually measured the quadrants of the stage incorrectly, which threw the dancers off, and the stagehands are all very like, oh no, we don't make any mistakes, and I'm freaking out because, and that wasn't right at that moment, or maybe it was, I don't know, but we had this whole history of having it be difficult to get the stage set the way the dancers needed it in order to be precise. And people the dancers weren't taking it seriously enough, and the stagehands weren't taking it seriously enough. So, on that level, I feel like it could have been more perfect.
I'm sure it could be.
But it's true, because it's a grid, so you've got, or I used to think of it like a slide rule, but it goes both directions. And so eventually, I don't know about the first performances, but eventually the stage is divided into thirds, and you have two lines that help you, and then you have the wing structure, and their lines were not right, so I felt bad for them. But then you just say, okay, yes, Brigitte, we'll fix it.
Bien sûr.
No explanation
I like very
needed.
much the last sequence, because we are lost in this opera. We see. We are very impressed by the decor, Lisa, especially. first time I was.
Well, there's this, I forget what the year is, but right above the opera curtain, there's this kind of medallion that says fondé on, whatever the year is, 17 something something. And you go, okay, yes. It's a majestic space.
And you don't find the way to go out. At the end, it's funny for me.
It is
because
funny. It is funny.
Yes.
You can't get out of the Paris Opera stage. May I ask what's next for you? First of all, where are you based, and what are you teaching? Are you traveling? Are you staging other things?
Haven't you heard enough from me tonight?
No, never.
No, not
All right.
yet.
I often say, I'm one of the fortunate people who's been able to spend a lifetime in the performing arts, and I began as a dancer, and you saw me at the age of 25 there, and now I'm 64. And so I was a performer. I made choreography. I spent a lot of time teaching, and with the assistance of people like Wendy Perrin here, I developed a writing practice. I've been very involved with helping foster dance criticism in Philadelphia, where I live. And I've also written a lot of longer essays and things like that. But I actually have a job that is not teaching and not dancing or anything like that. I run a performing arts series at Bryn Mawr College outside of Philadelphia. And that was the context in which we were able to work with Pennsylvania Ballet and also bring the company to Bryn Mawr. And now I'm working on something. Maybe some of you saw it on a project related to a piece that was in Under the Radar in January called Garden Speak, which has to do with people killed in the early days of the Syrian uprising and buried in gardens behind private homes. So that's quite a different kettle of fish, and I have a fairly wide array of things that I'm involved with.
Thank you for that. And Diane is
Okay,
I've
we're always
Carolyn and Diane, do you have plans to do more work on Trisha Brown? Something in the
For
works?
Sure. The company is going to Abu Dhabi in 2 weeks, and then on to LA with the In Plain Sight performances. And there's lots of teaching going on, which you commented on seeing Diane's work.
Yes.
With NYU, and this summer we're going to be reconstructing Groove and Counter Move and L'Amour au Théâtre, and we are going to have an alumni cast perform Opaloop at Jacob's Pillow at the summer's end. So
That's great.
yeah.
That's great. And what about you, Marie-Hélène? What is your next project?
I hope I can answer next year, if you want. And it's a surprise.
Okay.
I prefer to stay today with Trisha Brown and say that I think in that film we can see how amazing is her movement. And I try to show that of the rehearsal we saw, because it's all the film, all the editing who show that special way
The
of
special
move.
passion for the movement,
Yeah.
for sure. Yes. Well, I think we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much for coming, and let's have more Trisha Brown, as much as we can get. Thank you.